I'm Gabby. Let's talk about hustle culture. It's really bad for your mental health. I'm sure you see hustle culture all over the internet. It's all over Instagram. There's a million pages out there that recommend hustle culture, why it's good for you, what you should be doing, how much money you could be making. What it's really telling you is that you should just be working and working and working until, well, you're dead. And what's really the point there? If all you're doing is working your whole life just to make money, what happens to that money? What happens to you? So I have so many people in my life that are just constantly working. You know, they have a full-time job and then they have a sort of side hustle, which, you know, is fair. Sometimes we all have to do a little bit of side work, maybe because we enjoy it or because we just need to make ends meet. And that's okay, but that's way different than hustle culture. Hustle culture is the idea that all you do is work, that you lose sleep, you lose friends, you lose relationships and experiences because all you're doing is working. It's the idea that if you just work harder than everybody else, that you'll somehow get ahead or you're somehow better than them. But the real fact of the matter is you're not. The reality is that you're probably worse off than those people who aren't hustling. Sure, you might have money, but did you really make that much more money just because you were hustling? Probably not. So what's the whole idea? Do you just want to be better than somebody else or perceivedly better than somebody else? The answer is probably yes. And that's fair. We all want to feel like we're better than other people sometimes. It's a human systematic error that we seem to have, that we just constantly have to be better than other people in our lives. Hustle culture just continues to perpetuate that. If all we're thinking about is how to do better, then all we're doing is looking towards the future. We're constantly seeing, well, what can I do to be better? What can I work toward? Or you're constantly looking at the past and criticizing everything that you've ever done wrong, which is so incredibly unhealthy because then you're never living in the present. And the present is your life. If you're not living in the present and you're constantly living in the future or the past, then what are you doing? Are you happy? Like, really, look internally. Are you happy with the life that you have? And if you are, that's wonderful. And I know there are a lot of people out there who their whole identity is their job. And at some point, that's a little unhealthy. Sure, a lot of us deem that we're successful because we have a career that we love. But careers are not the definition of success as much as hustle culture tells us they are. Success is what you want it to be. It's, you know, spending time with your friends, with your family, traveling, having experiences that you otherwise wouldn't. Maybe it's just a good meal with your loved ones, or spending time going on a walk with your dog. But all hustle culture teaches us is that if we're not working hard, then we're not going to get anywhere in life. I see all of these things and I constantly get them recommended to me. These things on Instagram, these motivational pages that are sharing inspo. That's a load of bullshit. The people who are forcing hustle culture down our throats are not the people who are hustling. And I'm not saying that maybe at some point they didn't, but they aren't any longer. They're constantly gaining because other people are hustling. So stop for a minute and think, am I really making more because I'm hustling? No, you're not. The people above you, our bosses or our bosses' bosses or our bosses' bosses' bosses are making a shitload of money just because we're being told to hustle, how we could do better, how we're just not enough because we're giving 100%. The idea is that you work until you're dead. I see this quote a lot of times, especially on those inspiration pages, that says, don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done. You could really cross out done and just write dead in its place. Who defines done? If being tired is not when you're done, then what is? I went to school to be a graphic designer. And so I understand the fatigue of feeling like you're done. There's something that's so subjective about art, especially design. You never feel like you're done. So if that's the case, would I ever finish? No, I would never stop. I would just constantly be working on designs or putting more and more time into sketching or thinking of concepts. And that's the whole idea, isn't it? We're just constantly in this grind of how do we continue to get more? How do we continue to give more to our employers? And that's so sad. I find myself thinking often, what are people doing with their money when all they do is work? And so, I've asked a couple people I know about, what do you do with your money since you're working all the time? If the whole intention is to make money, what do you do with it? And so often they'll say, well, I want to retire when I'm 50, when I'm 65. But if the whole idea is that by the time you're 50 or 65, that you just have enough money to live, then what are the experiences that you're having? You've probably made enough money to just live with the status quo as it is now. And I'm not saying that's a bad life. Maybe it's great. Maybe you have a beautiful home and a beautiful family, and it's everything you've ever wanted. But at some point, there's always something we want more. Better yet, there's even more people who think, well, I don't ever want to retire. All I want to do is work. But what happens to your money then? I mean, you can't take it with you when you die. If you're overworking and pushing yourself past your limits, then that's of course going to negatively affect you. Because hustle culture is constantly keeping our bodies in this fight or flight response, in this heightened level of stress. We're actually impairing our productive ability. If you find yourself believing in hustle culture, you're not alone. Even I, for a majority of my life, believed that that was the only way to do it because that's what society told me. It was this constant game of comparing yourself to your friends, to your family, to your coworkers. As I mentioned in my other video, in case you didn't watch it, I went through an incredibly severe concussion a couple years back that changed my entire mindset on this. I realize now how stupid it all was. I spent so much time thinking about what I could do to improve my employer's world. How could I make it more efficient? And it was this constant cycle. Or sometimes it would keep me up at night of, how do I do better? How do I be better than the people that I work with? Looking back, I wasn't. We were all the same in our employers' eyes. None of us were better to them. In fact, all we were to them was a number. They didn't care about the things that we provided them because they didn't have to. As I said before, the people who push hustle culture are not the people who are hustling. It's people like you or I who are spending our whole lives fretting about how do we make somebody else's life better? How do we make somebody else more money? I can see so clearly now how negative of an effect hustle culture had on my mental health. Now, and most of my life, I've suffered from depression and anxiety, but looking back on it, I see how far it progressed in my last job, my career. I thought I just had to continue to work harder and harder to get out of this mindset of I'm sad or I'm depressed or I'm feeling incredibly anxious. It was this constant level of stress that I couldn't maintain. I couldn't eat anything. I could barely drink water. I just constantly felt nauseous. It was this impossible task to even talk to somebody. And obviously I had a lot of trauma from the concussion going on. But looking back, I'm realizing how much of that was stress as compared to what I thought was symptoms from the concussion. Now that I'm out of that, I realize how important it is to take time for myself. I still feel guilty sometimes, which is awful, but I still harbor this guilt when I take time for myself. And all of that is little inklings in the back of my head based off of these terrible hustle culture pages and motivation pages that you see on Instagram that talk about inspiration and about how if you work harder, you're just somehow going to be successful. But what is success? Success doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be some crazy job like the CEO of, I don't know, some big corporation. Success can be having a family, can be spending time with your friends. Sure, it can be money, but I sure as hell hope you're spending that money in some way that makes you happy. I hope that you watch this video and think maybe I should spend some more time working on my mental health. I should, for lack of a better way of putting it, stop and smell the roses sometimes. I'm so much happier now than I was before because I actually spend time for myself doing things that I love, whether that's playing video games or streaming for you guys on YouTube. It's even as simple as going outside with my dog sometimes or having a meal with my husband. You know, I'm not the richest person in the world, but that's okay. I'm happy with the little life that I've made for myself. Some people just have that drive to be more than that, and that's okay. Just make sure that you're doing it for yourself and not for somebody else. Hustle culture teaches us to work for others, but what you should really be doing is working for yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean employ yourself. It just means work for your own mental health. It's important to remember and to think of the things that you find important, whether that's your family or your friends. Maybe it is your career. Stop spending your time making money for somebody else. Make the money for yourself and then spend the money. Enjoy the money. Do the things that you want to do. Treat yourself. I know it's really hard to get out of that mindset. And like I said, even I feel guilty sometimes still. And it's been years working on not feeling guilty, of getting out of the hustle culture mindset. But it's important. And at the end of the day, what is it all for? It should be for you. You should be working for yourself. Hustle is such a terrible word. Grind is such a terrible word, unless you're playing Pokemon and looking for a shiny, in which case, keep grinding. I hope you get it. I stream on YouTube, previously on Twitch, and so many streamers talk about how it's a hustle. They're hustling, they're grinding to make numbers and to get subs and to get follows and to make money. But I do it because I love it. The same reason that I put these videos out for all of you. I like sharing my stories with people, and I know this is probably a little rambly, but this is what is important to me. After a horrible thing happening to me, this came out of it. And I hope that it can help even one person realize that hustling is not the only way to live their life. I hope that you wake up and you feel a little bit lighter because, you know, you spent 5 minutes less working. Even just drive a little slower to work. You don't always have to be 10 minutes early. Well, I hope you guys found this video entertaining. If you did, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell to find out when I upload new videos and when I go live on YouTube. I am officially making the switch from Twitch to YouTube, so I hope that you will stick around for those. We do often talk about stuff like this on there, as well as play games, because I like to just kind of mash those together. They're two things that are very important to me. And I will catch you in the next video.